Hi, I'm Heather Briccetti. I'm the president and CEO of the Business Council of New York State, and I'm joined here this morning with Gavin Donohue, who is the president and CEO of IPPNY, the Independent Power Producers of New York, and Rich Thomas, who is the executive director of the New York Area. Is it still Area Alliance? We're here basically to call upon the legislature to make some changes in the budget. The principal change that we would like to be made would be the full and final repeal of the 18A surcharge. In 2009, a different legislature and a different governor dramatically increased the cost of electricity in New York by adding a fee onto electric consumption called 18A. Literally, in New York State, we have some of the lowest wholesale prices in the country for the commodity that is used to make electricity. However, we have the fourth highest energy costs in the country, and that is because of state added taxes and fees. The 18A fees this year, if they are not repealed, will generate $178 million. Next year, $136 million. These are just tacked on to everyone's electric bill to fund the general fund. With this year's surplus, it's time to get rid of them once and for all. Affordable energy is a critical component to any thriving economy and a necessity for New York businesses and residents alike. Every single person who uses electricity in the state or who pays for it pays for this surcharge. And it is particularly burdensome on manufacturers. The taxes and fees that are imposed on New York electric consumers add as much as 67% to industrial energy users. It obviously is a drag on growth. It is a disincentive to invest in New York, and it is a job-killing tax and fee. There are some other changes that we're calling for. We oppose a $19.7 million assessment on energy consumers, which is a new fee that would be added in this year's budget. We oppose a sweep of $36 million in RGGI proceeds. And we reject proposed fees on Title V facilities, state facility air permits, and SPEDS permits. And if you quiz me on what that stands for, I couldn't tell you, but one of these guys could. With that, I'm just going to turn it over to Gavin Donohue, the president and CEO of IPPNY. And after that, we'll hear from Rich Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Heather, for putting this together, and I thank everybody for being here this morning. It's an important message. I'm going to try not to be redundant with some of the things Heather has said, but I think it's important to point out that higher fee increases mean higher costs for consumers. There's no doubt about it. And my sector, the generator sector in New York State, currently pays over $600 million already in property taxes across the state. So we are a huge payer of taxes already. I'm here to talk about two very specific fee increases. The speedies charge, which Heather talked about a minute ago, which is basically your permit to withdraw water from a water body to generate electricity. It's very important, but it's a very costly fee, and the executive budget has a fee increase in there. But the biggest one that I really want to highlight this morning is the Title V permit fee, which is the air pollution fees. Over the last 13 years, New York State, we have reduced emissions in NOx, which is nitrogen oxide, by 81% and sulfur dioxide by 94%. And what is strange about this proposal, we've done a great job lowering emissions, but what you've said to those folks is, okay, as a result of lowering emissions, we still want you to pay more for your permits. And these fee increases are enormous. I have a member that I represent that has a fee increase right now that pays $792,000 for their Title V fees, which is multiple power plants. This proposed fee increase would be an additional $329,000 to the tune of $1 million plus just for your Title V permit. So that just gives you a real life example of what this costs. To back up my argument about the fee increases, right now in New York State, an applicant pays between $45 to $65 per ton for their emissions. This executive budget proposal would increase that number from $45 to $90 a ton. And just to give it to you comparatively, the EPA's tonnage fee is $48.27. So in essence, this is a double of the EPA proposal for a fee increase. So that will translate, if it's not rejected by the legislature, along with the speedies fee increase, more costs for more consumers, and make New York less competitive than the rest of the region around us, and send the wrong message to consumers and businesses. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rich Thomas, who can add on to some of these things.
Thanks, Gavin, and thank you, Heather, for hosting us. New Yorkers are getting zapped with some of the highest electricity prices in the nation, to the tune of $1.6 billion, very conservative estimate of electricity taxes on New Yorkers' bills. And it is especially bad this winter because of the increase in demand of electricity. And we're here today to kind of start a campaign to cut those taxes, because hardworking New Yorkers deserve to keep their money, and by returning those funds to ratepayers will provide a much needed boost to the economy. Now, before I just go on and talk about some of the points that I want to emphasize that are in our issue brief that was issued earlier today, I just want to add some context in addition to what Gavin and Heather said. The cost to generate electricity over the past 5 years has fallen by approximately 30%. However, explicit state electricity taxes have driven a wedge between producers and consumers, prohibiting both from enjoying the benefits of lower costs. So over that time period, we've seen electricity taxes become, our research shows, just too high. And to give you some more context, a typical bill comprises of 25% taxes. And it's a key reason why New York State has some of the highest electric costs, 58% higher than the national average. And keep in mind that electricity taxes are regressive. It's not something that discriminates per se of who pays it. Those on limited incomes, poor, are hardest hit. And it's a life essential, so you really can't choose between your electricity, your heat, your rent, or your medicine. So the state legislature can do something today to kind of lower that burden. And this is part of the reason why now is a good time to cut electricity taxes and also increase transparency. One of the things that we realize is that all these fees are just woven into an electricity bill. And there's really very difficult to find out where the resources go. But one of the things we can tell you is that we need to eliminate these hidden subsidies and allow energy projects to be market competitive, not without the state picking winners and losers in the free energy markets. And one of the things that I think is important that we want to point out is that the PSC should make sure they support competitive projects and fully disclose any and all hidden subsidies. So the bottom line is ratepayers need relief, and the state can do something right now to lower that burden by cutting electricity taxes. Thank you. Heather?
Thank you. With that, I just would open it up to any questions from the members of the media or anyone else if you have questions.
Do you have any support either through the administration or any other legislators that are going to push a bill or anything like that?
Well, obviously, we were disappointed that the phase out of 18A was not included in the executive budget, but we do believe that we do have support in the Senate and hopefully in the Assembly as well. It is, the 18A surcharge is something that is supported, the repeal of it has been historically supported by people representing consumer groups and industry and other associations as well. So there's strong support for phasing it out.
The PSC is, I think at the last meeting, really pushed for more solar. That seems to be the direction they're going in. Do you think that that's the right way to go, or are they ignoring this issue in favor of solar?
Well, I would allow others to comment on this, but I would say we do support a broad spectrum of sources of generation. We don't support picking winners and losers necessarily or creating an uneven playing field. And I don't know if...
I think it's important for folks to realize
Yeah, come on up.
renewable energy is really important to our diversity. States that have not had an abundance of reliable, renewable, or diverse portfolio have been subjected to huge price impacts. So focusing on solar, we think, is a good thing. Solar is becoming more economical every day, and what it does is it allows balance into the portfolio. Today in New York State, we have 1,800 megawatts of wind across New York State. Back in 2008, 2009, nobody ever thought that would happen. So So trying to put market signals in place to send that investment signal is important. So solar energy is very important for New York and something that we enthusiastically support.
I just want to add, one of the inhibitors to solar are taxes. And when you take a look at, if you're in New York City, you want to put a solar panel on your roof, the process of getting that done is onerous. So your building may not conform to code, or if you generate electricity from solar, you wind up getting taxed, even though you're only paying for your own lights. So New York City really has some challenging regulations when it comes to the adoption of these new technologies. But New York State can do something about it by lowering the cost burden and eliminating many of these taxes.
And when you say level playing field, what you're saying is that you don't want subsidies to go to solar because a lot of renewable sources to be market competitive need those incentives, some of which are supported by these programs like the RPS and the EAPS and the others. So are you saying that you don't want subsidies to flow to renewable sources? Do you believe that's not a good use of state resources?
What I would say to that, and I think it's important that the other two guys get a chance to comment, but what I would say to that is, when I said level playing field, what I meant was there's a lot of opportunities right now, particularly with the expansion of natural gas, that are receiving the cold shoulder, at least in the media and in polling. And it's unfortunate because it's a low-cost source of energy that is abundant. And so we think that all of the generation needs to be treated, I think, with an even hand, not picking favorites or winners and losers.
The process in New York, I don't think anybody has a problem with incentives to kickstart programs. You know, to send the right public policy message, to have a kickstart, to say, hey, this is important to New York, come here, be competitive. What I'm trying to say is that if you're going to do that, also put out an RFP process and a market structure that allows everybody to compete fairly so that the consumer gets to pick, the consumer gets the benefit of the best result. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right, and I think Gavin hit the nail on the head with respect to that. You know, innovation only takes place when you have limited resources, but the way these programs are designed, they kind of allow unexpended funds to be a reoccurrence. And that's one of the things where those funds should be returned to ratepayers because the benefits really aren't reaching them. And just one more thing I just want to add, I'm sorry. You know, if you think about many of the consumers, energy users in New York City, particularly the poor and those on limited income, they're paying taxes into these funds. However, their likelihood of putting a solar panel on their roof is extremely unlikely. So there should be a mechanism at which to decouple that responsibility from their rate. And I think that's something that New Yorkers would all appreciate.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Brian.